So, what is the Salem Witch Trials? The year was 1692, a small Puritan town in Massachusetts called Salem Village, and paranoia hung heavier than the fog that clung to the New England coast. For nearly a year, hysteria gripped the community in what would become one of the most infamous witch hunts in American history. Neighbors accused neighbors, friends turned against friends, and the boundaries between superstition, politics, and religion blurred until innocent people were condemned by the force of fear itself. This is the story of the Salem Witch Trials. The basics. The Salem Witch Trials were a series of hearings and prosecutions that took place from February 1692 to May 1693 in colonial Massachusetts. In this short but devastating period, more than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft, the devil's magic. Ultimately, 20 people were executed, 19 by hanging and 1 by being pressed to death with stones. Many others languished in prison. What made Salem unique wasn't just that witch trials happened. Europe had seen thousands of them before. It was that this episode burned so deeply into the American psyche, standing as both a cautionary tale and a cultural scar. The trials exposed how fragile communities can become when fear overrides reason. How it worked. The events. It all began with 2 young girls, Betty Paris, age 9, and her cousin Abigail Williams, age 11. In the home of Reverend Samuel Paris, they began having strange fits, screaming, contorting, throwing things, crawling under furniture. Doctors couldn't explain it. The conclusion? Witchcraft. Soon other girls in the village started showing similar symptoms. The afflicted children began accusing members of the community of bewitching them. The first 3 women charged were Tituba, an enslaved woman from the Paris household, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly, unpopular woman. Conveniently, these were all people on the margins of society. Once the accusations started, they spread like wildfire. More and more townsfolk were accused, some from grudges, others from paranoia. Trials were held in front of local magistrates, and evidence included spectral visions, odd behavior, and dreams. If someone claimed they saw your ghost pinching them in the night, that counted against you. The courts, overwhelmed, began to accept this so-called spectral evidence. Judges believed that Satan could use a witch's spirit to torment others, so invisible visions carried weight in testimony. This made defense nearly impossible. How do you argue against dreams and unseen spirits? As the panic grew, even respected members of the community weren't safe. Rebecca Nurse, a pious and elderly woman, was executed despite strong support from her neighbors. Giles Corey, who refused to plead guilty or not guilty, was crushed to death under heavy stones, reportedly urging his tormentors to add more weight. The hysteria reached its peak in mid-1692, with trials and hangings happening regularly. By October, however, doubts began creeping in. Too many people were accused, even the governor's own wife. The governor of Massachusetts, William Phips, finally stepped in, dissolved the special court, and prohibited further use of spectral evidence. The frenzy fizzled out. History/origins. To understand why Salem erupted the way it did, we need to step back into the mindset of Puritan New England. These were deeply religious people, convinced the devil was actively at work in their daily lives. The colony was also under severe stress, harsh winters, smallpox outbreaks, conflicts with indigenous tribes, and political instability. Fear and uncertainty set the stage for scapegoats. The Puritans believed they were building a city on a hill, a shining example of godliness. But when things went wrong, the devil was the obvious explanation. Add to that tight-knit communities where grudges ran deep, land disputes, inheritance battles, church politics, and suddenly witchcraft accusations became a weapon. Salem wasn't the first witch panic, but it was the largest in colonial North America. Its unique mix of social tension, religious fervor, and legal mishandling made it infamous. Impact/legacy. The Salem Witch Trials left a mark that's still visible today. In the short term, families were shattered, reputations destroyed, and the community deeply scarred. Some survivors spent years petitioning for justice, and in 1711 the Massachusetts government offered financial compensation to heirs of the condemned. It was too little, too late. Long term, the trials shaped American ideas about justice, evidence, and religious freedom. The episode is often cited as a warning about mass hysteria and the dangers of mixing church with state law. The principle of innocent until proven guilty found fresh importance in the American legal system because Salem showed what happens when the reverse is true. Culturally, the Salem Witch Trials inspired countless plays, books, and films. Arthur Miller's The Crucible, 1953, used the trials as an allegory for McCarthyism, when Americans were accused of communism without real proof. Today, Salem itself has leaned into the history, becoming a tourist hub where witches, ghosts, and history all blend into a spooky economy. The trials also highlight how quickly societies can unravel when fear spreads unchecked. A lesson that feels eerily relevant in the age of misinformation and viral panic. Random facts. The only person executed by pressing, Giles Corey, supposedly cursed Salem before he died. Local lore says misfortune still haunts the town. More women were accused than men, but several men were charged too. The youngest accused was Dorothy Good, just 4 years old. She spent months in jail. Modern theories suggest the girl's fits may have been caused by ergot poisoning, a hallucinogenic fungus that grows on rye. Others believe it was mass psychological hysteria. In 1957, Massachusetts formally apologized for the trials. Today, Salem High School's sports teams are called the Witches. Conclusion. So what is the Salem Witch Trials? It was a dark chapter in early American history where fear, superstition, and personal vendettas drowned out truth and reason. For a single year, the village of Salem was consumed by paranoia, and innocent lives were lost because of invisible evidence and unchecked hysteria. The Salem Witch Trials remind us how fragile justice can be when fear rules, and how easily communities can turn against their own. The lesson isn't just about witches, it's about power, fear, and the importance of standing against hysteria before it swallows reason whole. If you also like learning random things, subscribe. You have found your happy place. Poem Whispers in Salem. The wind it howled through Salem town, where truth was lost and fear wore a crown. The gallows creaked, the stones pressed tight, justice vanished into night. Whispers grew with every breath, names were traded, deals with death. Innocence burned beneath the flame, forever etched, a cursed name. But from the ash a warning stays, a call for reason in future days. For when fear speaks, it twists and lies, and justice fades where Salem cries.